English translation. 153rd contact. Wednesday, 25th November, 1981, 22:52 hours.
You are in a great hurry to meet me today, my friend. On the one hand, this is exactly right, because I received a letter from Engelbert a few hours ago, on which I would gladly like to hear your opinion. On the other hand, I have a cold, so talking is somewhat difficult for me today. For this reason, I would have preferred it if I could have remained lying down.
However, this conversation would be important.
We are here now, and it should remain so.
Then I do not want to drag the conversation on for too long, but will get right to the point. It concerns Kay, for she causes me to worry. You know about the wrong things that have begun with her in regards to Thomas. Our hope was that in a few weeks, Kay would recognize the falsity of this relationship. However, this has not happened because Thomas did not allow that necessary fairness, which we might have expected. For my part, I thought that he would think about my words that I said about him, when I said that something is in him that he should resolve. At that time, I was referring to the fact that he should bring his desires under control, trying to bind Kay to himself by any means, for which every means was right to him. As has been revealed in the course of time since then, however, he has not tried in any form for this fairness, but quite the contrary, despite my instructive explanation of how we manage such concerns on our worlds. He has not acknowledged this instruction and guidance because such was he. Rather, he used every opportunity and every unfair means to put Kay under his spell and bind her to himself. I gave my explanations, which were specifically addressed to him, in order to draw his attention to the fact that he treads on a wrong path. And if he would have actually thought about this, then it would have become apparent to him that his thoughts and feelings toward Kay are only selfish in nature, referring to purely material values. Had he been so willing to suppress his selfishness, he would have found the path of recognition. Thus, he would have distanced himself from Kay, who herself, on the other hand, and this is very important, also has not determined him to be a marriage partner, and ultimately not even a close friend for this existence. But now she is about to make a serious mistake, whereby she threatens to endanger her entire evolutionary goal of this life. And because Thomas has not thought about my words for personal selfish reasons, a fault must be spoken of him regarding the aberration that Kay now suffers. Thomas is not her destiny, neither as a platonic friend nor as a marriage partner. According to her own destiny, her self-predetermined life partner should first step into appearance after her 25th year of age. However, an upward shift has already been shown, which may extend this up to 3 years. This postponement is grounded in the fact that Kay has suffered emotional destruction, which is due to the wrong and selfish drives of many Earthmen, which are aimed at the female life forms of this world. Kay has naivety regarding the truth in reference to the earthly man, who often takes advantage of the female life forms playfully and often only uses them as lust-fulfilling objects, has caused this psyche-burdening destruction in her, through the corresponding experiences that she had to go through. This has now led her astray to pursue a self-help direction that is of a completely wrong nature, and through which she now falsely feels tied to Thomas. This, however, this serious mistake, she should end very quickly and thus also loosen the false emotional bond to Thomas. She no longer has a long time for this, if her already major damage is not to still progress so far that it becomes irreparable. Talk with her about this and clear her up about the truthful facts, and also see to it that from now on, Thomas no longer finds the opportunity to put Kay further under his spell.
And how do you imagine that?
He must be forbidden to appear more often in the center than what the incidental jobs and meetings allow.
You imagine that very easily?
It is a matter of maintaining Cade's evolution in the framework determined by her, which is already at risk. Nevertheless, which is unfortunately true for many Earth humans of today, due to the degeneration of moral behavior. The members of the group, however, have determined themselves for the mission work, and it is necessary in this context, therefore, that they carry out their evolution according to their own destiny. You know this, which is why you should also pay attention to this, as you stand at the side of the group members, giving advice on these matters.
Of course, but I cannot interfere in the private affairs of the members. These do not concern me.
That is of correctness, but for advice, you should talk with the group members about their personal concerns.
I could do that if they would ask me for advice.
That is also of correctness, and since the group members are at the source, they should also take in this assistance, by which means they could avoid a lot of inconvenience.
That will, however, only be done by a few.
Unfortunately, that is also of correctness, and this attitude should be changed very quickly, so that one also consults you in such important matters. If Kay, for example, had done this earlier, then she would have been spared from a lot of grief and even psychological destruction of certain values.
I cannot force anyone. Each human being lives their own life.
But appropriate advice would often prevent a lot of wrong and evil, as it would have been the case with Kay. So now, however, her own destiny has been endangered, and also the balance of her psyche, which may already entail that in her life, a lot must be changed, so that she still reaches her goal after all. If that actually happens, then we would have to strive to find appropriate solutions in order for her to reach her own specific goal.
Time will prove that. But what should really be done now in the present situation?
I explained this to you, nevertheless. But if you cannot fulfill this task, then the closest thing might be that Kayuk's parents familiarize her with the truth. But in order also to give satisfaction to the matter elsewhere, it is necessary that Thomas is also pulled away from the duty of the night watch, so that there is also no further opportunity for him to bind Kay further to himself. His duty should be taken over by Louis.
I will first talk with her parents about these things.
That might also be a path of correctness. Thus do it like that.
Good. Then this subject would be finished?
I hope that we do not have to waste any more words over that.
Great. Then I can now burden you with this letter?
You can do that.
Here, my friend, read it at once.
Quetzal takes the letter and reads it.
Ferdinand behaves very strangely and incorrectly. Whether there are some in the group now who indulge in the pleasure of smoking, this can never be his concern, and he also was not entitled to the constitution of such a letter, and also not to such demands. It is fine to say that smoking is harmful, but that does not have to be necessarily so in every case. Already at an earlier time we once discussed these smoking issues, and it's been clearly explained to you that smoking is harmful only when it becomes health hazardous. For non-smokers, tobacco products usually have no or only very mild effects, whereby non-smokers are not endangered by smokers in this manner. Due to the toxins of all kinds deposited by the humans into the atmosphere, humans are tens of thousands of times more and severely endangered than non-smokers who spend time in smoking residues. Only the earthly human beings make tobacco residues out to be much worse than they actually are. Smoke residues like ash and butts, etc., are usually harmless, whereas the so-called passive smoking can be quite dangerous. So, when non-smokers are forced to breathe in cigarette smoke passively with smokers. Not everyone is susceptible to the harms of smoking, but these exceptions are few. But in any case, exaggerations always appear in every form, which either completely trivialize or else immensely exaggerate everything. On the one hand, this is done by those smokers who have fallen to this addiction excessively, but on the other hand, this is also done by those human beings, and in a very great measure, who in no way indulge in smoking addiction or who have freed themselves from it. And because there have already been pronounced anti-smoking organizations on the earth for many years, especially vegetarian-oriented groups that also scorn the enjoyment of animal food out of false aspects, an anti-smoking initiative has developed, which truly finds no authorization. Our mission, and also that of the group, does not consist of the fact that the group members and other outsiders would have to become non-smokers or vegetarians, even if the indulgence in tobacco smoke actually causes harmful effects in the bodies, etc. of human beings. It should be such that even in these matters, every group member and every other Earth human being can act at their own discretion, without any attempts being made by third parties to keep the smokers from their addiction. It would be an intrusion into the personal affairs of individuals, and it neither has anything to do with our mission nor with the instruction mentioned by Ferdinand of the Earth humans by the group members. On the other hand, the statutes state very clearly that any advertising or distribution of anything that is foreign to the mission and foreign to the group is prohibited in Figu I, which he does not follow with his action, nevertheless. His action is even tantamount to extortion, against which the statutes also speak, so he must be made attentive to this urgently, with the reproach for him of the potentially resulting consequences. And in the future, which absolutely must be explained, new group members must be made attentive to the fact that the group has been able to develop to the current state only by the fact that attention was never paid to such advertisements, demands, and extortion, and every group member was truly free in his or her personal activities, which must also continue to remain so. This also means that the statutes must be observed and followed, and that everything that now exists today has arisen solely out of the observance of the same. Thus, the statutes have proven to be correct, so already for this reason it is not right that any new group members try to violate them, as is also true for Thomas. The freedom of the individual and the group members in the whole thing must remain preserved. So new group members should not dare to try to produce changes through innovations and freedom-robbing advertisements and extortion. The provided method with the statutes and their observance has proven to be very precise and good, and this should not and may not find any change. This was also decided and signed by all group members, so everything has also been accepted as right and worthy to be obeyed by those who are suddenly of the thought that they need to bring innovations, which are not acceptable, however, because they infringe upon the freedom of one's personality. And if Ferdinand is now of the opinion that he should donate 100.00 francs per month if the smokers become non-smokers through his attempted extortion, then he can very well add these 100.00 francs to the settled amount as a monthly contribution, which he should consider. It seems that I made a calculation error in determining the monthly contribution for him because he can obviously put aside more of a contribution for the mission than what I have seen according to his circumstances. In regards to the mechanical retention of assembly meetings every first Saturday of a month, I am of the same view as what was held by a group decision, as you have mentally transmitted to me. Right now, it does not seem advisable that these discussions are held by individual group members in this manner, because things could inadvertently be triggered by this, which could have a damaging impact, especially on the fulfillment of the mission. In this regard, I have made some calculations that precisely indicate in their results that such harmful forms would appear, so one should not be granted permission to do so, as it is requested in this supplemental writing here. Ingrid can always be informed of the meetings by her husband, by which this proposal is also unnecessary. Moreover, it is to be mentioned to Ingrid and Ferdinand as well as to Elizabeth that they also have to fulfill the duty of the meditation exercises in the center, and their time should amount to 2 hours per month, which should find their fulfillment in each case during the meeting time.
Determining this falls into the duties of the group, which has to meet this arrangement.
That is of correctness. I just wanted to draw your attention to that. Furthermore, I still have to explain to you the following regarding Ingrid and Elizabeth, but this should not be mentioned officially because it concerns their past and future and also their special tasks that they should take over, if the High Council agrees with our present proposals. In order to be able to clarify these concerns fully, however, the following is necessary, which you should please discuss and take care of with Ingrid and Elizabeth. Once we have the detailed knowledge about this, we can then tell the High Council about it, after which the decision will then be made immediately.
Once again, you give me strange requests, but I will do my best. But first, I have to calculate all things well, but which I, honestly, will not like doing.
That is not necessary, because I will transmit all the necessary data to you in the next few days.
Good, then I can save myself all kinds of work.
That is of correctness, and it will also be like that in the other cases.
You have more of the same in mind?
The time has already progressed very far, so we must take care of these concerns now. The tasks must be fulfilled, as you know, and this will now slowly demand a few things from the group members.
I understand, but tell me, have you now found a possibility as to how you could find a solution for individual discussions of the group members with a computer?
Yes, this matter is ripe for discussion. As I already told you, there is the possibility of a written response via a monitor and the possibility of a mechanical speech response. Nevertheless, the devices and apparatuses would have to be of earthly origin, which I would have to prepare and alter accordingly, however. Also, a separate and soundproof room would be necessary for this. You would have to procure and maintain the necessary apparatuses and equipment in accordance with my instructions, and furthermore, this communication could only be carried out as long as you are among the living, for you offer the only guarantee that everything is properly controlled and that no nonsense is carried out. But now, it is doubtful whether one or the other of the response technologies will work satisfactorily because my experiments have shown that neither the monitor response method nor that of the mechanical voice would be of full benefit. As my tests showed, a monitor responder would not find enough attention so that the replies would be grasped. A mechanical voice, however, acts very coldly and impersonally on the Earth humans, whereby the danger is given that a rejection effect would appear. For this reason, I think that a familiar human voice alone is the necessary solution. Of course, I thought of your voice, which I could store by syllable in the response computer, which would then speak with your voice.
That would be something, but I still think it is not good.
I do not understand that, because the group members are still accustomed to your voice.
For that very reason. Computers have the characteristic that they are so monotonous and choppy.
No, you can rest assured, because that is not the case here. Our linguistic computers speak very fluently, and even correctly emphasize when they are stored and programmed with human voices.
Do you think, then, that the apparatus would speak in such a manner as if it was me?
That is of correctness. Only in a few things would a weak change be detected, but it would not be strikingly noticed. But whether this form of question answering would be acceptable to the group members, this should be clarified by them.
Then I should bring this matter before the group?
That is so.
Good. Then I would like to state everything again so that I am sure of my case. Thus, please interrupt me if I say something wrong. The group members should be given the opportunity to be able to direct all personal questions and other questions of interest to them to a special computer, which will then answer their questions for them using the best of logic. For this purpose, a special and soundproof room must be provided, in which only the individual group member, undisturbed and isolated from listeners, can direct his or her questions to the computer located inside there, which is coupled with a repository of knowledge that also holds all personal data of all group members of the past and future within it. Then, this computer responds with my voice, while giving the exact answers on a logical basis. Is this right?
That corresponds to correctness, except for one point. The computer will not be in this room because it is a device designed by me, which is to be installed in the telemeter disk located high above the center. In the aforementioned room, there will only be earthly apparatuses and equipment, which will transmit the voices of the group members to the computer, and which in turn will also let the voice of the computer in space become audible.
Oh, I see. Then the computer is in the telemeter disk. Then I have misunderstood something.
This apparatus may not be positioned in the room because it is not an earthly device. It is also necessary that this apparatus hovers very high above the earth, because it will not have certain data stored in it, which must then be retrieved from the central computer in the station.
Aha, now I understand. Now, it interests me only whether a meditative process will be necessary for a question?
No, because the question has to occur acoustically and through a microphone. But for this, it is also necessary that the psyche is very balanced. Otherwise, the computer will not release an answer to the questions directed to it. Thus, this necessary balance must be present in the human beings, so that questions are accepted and answered.
Then the group members would have to be balanced when they enter this room.
That is of correctness. But up to the time of the completion of the enclosure, the group members should be so far along that they own the necessary balance. Otherwise, a meditative procedure would have to be carried out, but only by the male group members, while the female group members can implement another natural method to create the balance of the psyche, but this should not be mentioned officially in order to prevent misuse. Moreover, this method guarantees an absolute certainty of mental balance.
And what method is that?
You know it very well because it is...
Oh, I see. That really is the easiest and surest method. I know this, yes. With it, women really should have no problem in creating the necessary balance. It is just that with the man, this method does not work because it is not for him. For instead of balance, usually something else arises that is, indeed, connected with his wise of thinking, which in this regard, unfortunately, is not well balanced, but is degenerated, or, at least, is degenerated in many cases.
That is of correctness, unfortunately.
And how do the females among you hold up now, with the creation of the balance, if you even have such question and answer computers at all?
Those actually are there with us, and they are used very often. Our people are all balanced to such an extent that no one must first create the balance. But still, many females use the aforementioned method of application because it not only increases mental balance, but still has many other advantages.
That too is known to me. But now another question. How many of the Vegans and Lyrans are now already here?
All stations are fully occupied, and in the near future some will get in contact with you. I should convey love and peace to you from them.
Thank you very much.
Also, the group members should be warmly greeted by all of them.
Nice. Then I also express my thanks and my greetings in their name. Everyone will certainly be glad. But how is it now? We once spoke of this, or was it with Simya Se, that I would receive a number of names again, for our given list of names.
I will gladly do that when I find the necessary time for it.
Might it be possible that this time I could get other names, perhaps from the Lyrans or Vegans?
That should be possible. I will approach them for those.
Many thanks. Then I still have a question for Bernadette, if you permit.
She has asked about this for a long time, I know. Nevertheless, the concerns are not yet ripe for saying, so I still want to wait a little, which she should understand, please. Nevertheless, she should not give herself any worries.
Very well, thank you.
For the Earth humans, such events appear to be a problem, but quite wrongfully, as the group members will still come to know, for other similar things will still occur several times, because we will do our best to regulate the self-made but often destroyed self-determinations of the group members, which are repeatedly associated with such incidents. Indeed, it would be better for the parties involved if the origins lay elsewhere, as it would also be better for what emerges from it, as well as for the group and the mission and its fulfillment. Nevertheless, the origins compel circumstances that are not commendable and that may also bring difficulties with themselves. But in any case, we have already talked about this at an earlier point in time, although these concerns were not grasped by the group members and were even misunderstood. For this reason, in reference to the origin, we had to resort to measures that just are not commendable, because they are different to all appearances than what was intended for the persons concerned, which then leads them to doubts and the like, unfortunately. If we could make everything clear, if all parties involved and all other group members would think about these things rationally, then no problems would appear. Then, the origins, as well as what emerges from them in each case, would be just as clear, understandable, and, above all, accepted.
So your long story, in short, is that you do not want to speak openly of certain things, or cannot do this because there is the risk that some people will, once again, catch something in the wrong hook. However, your confusing speech is only apparently confusing because the affected persons, if they can be designated as such at all, nevertheless understand what is meant by your word salad.
That is of correctness.
I could have said all that even more complicatedly.
That may very well be, but is it very unfortunate that it must be said at all because the group members have not progressed so far in their understanding that they could just immerse themselves in these things?
To whom you say this? Many are just uptight and still misguided. That is also the problem, which is why I have been trying to figure out for a year or more how to describe and clarify the facts concerning those things that show themselves to the human beings of the earth as directives of joy, of stimulus sensation, and of mental hygiene and balance, etc., when they hold to certain rules, etc. But how I see things, if I would clarify this now, then I would be described as crazy or something.
We talked about this recently, when I had such a good time in your workroom. But I must say, you know very well how to describe the facts in such a manner that they are only understood by those who are directly oriented about them.
I did indeed say that even I can beat around the bush.
Indeed, You know how to do that very well, but I will give you assistance in this evil by talking about this issue with those who will visit you in the coming time. They should bring up the issue on their own and give the necessary explanations for this. A female would be suited for this very well, and best of all.
That is a possibility. I enjoy being surprised.
It should be so. But now it is that time, my friend, because you look very tired.
Fever and malaise.
That is apparent. Then until we meet again, my friend.
Bye.
Just a moment. Are you still thinking of the warning?
Are you thinking about the emigration?
Just that.
In the last few days, certainly, because the newly transmitted prophecies allow that only too well.
That is of correctness, for they should also warn you. All events and the overall behavior of the Earth humans up to now still allow no ray of hope that the expected events could be reduced or eliminated. Nevertheless, we are still working on being able to create at least a reduction.
Our difficulties are in the finances, but you do indeed know that.
If our proposals cannot be met for that reason, then we would have to find another solution. But this would be difficult because it would certainly be associated with more financial resources than an emigration.
I know, and besides, it would not be so certain. Unfortunately, there just are not any honestly interested humans who would also be willing to support the cause financially. Sectarianism is far more in demand than the truth.
Unfortunately, that is true, but we will continue our efforts, but now, until we meet again.
Bye, my friend, and until we... now something else comes to mind. You said that Lewis should take over Thomas's night watch. Does this also apply to the 2 Saturdays and a half watch?
No, it should only be 2 nights, from Friday to Saturday or from Saturday to Sunday.
Well, then there is another problem, namely when many group members are present, such as during the meeting days.
Then there should be a division with 3 people, which changes monthly. But just concerning this necessary and important task, it is to be said that occasionally this is not taken seriously and the determined points are not walked. More and more, I have noticed recently that such monitoring is neglected, whereby those on duty only spend their time reading or working on the premises without carrying out the much-needed security patrols. Such a wrong action is not only a breach of duty, but it can also be very harmful to the center as well as to the inhabitants. Still, in this respect, I do not want to mention any names, but if these matters do not change, then the guilty ones must be named and be held accountable. But now, it results from this individual misconduct that an inspector will be determined, who is responsible for monitoring the night watch.
Ah, so still that.
Discuss this with Engelbert, and also ensure that the unpleasant issues with Thomas are immediately put in order, as these things have become more urgent. But now until we meet again.
Then take care.